Welcome, esteemed guests. We'll still be admitting quite a number of people as we go along, but I would like to welcome each and every one of you today to our Connecting Repositories Board of Supporters biannual meeting, and we are ecstatic to have each and every one of you here today. I'm going to jump right into our agenda. But before I do that, my name is Monkhadi Ramushu, most affectionately known as Mo. I'm the Communications and Dissemination Specialist here at CORE. You might have seen my name in an email signature somewhere with all the emails I keep sending. And in today's agenda, we're going to have an overview of our recent core activities, which will be chaired by Peta. But we're going to have Catherine, we're going to have Frederick, we're going to have Mateo, as well as Victoria, that will be giving us bite-sized information that will be adding on to the overview of our activities. We're then going to have exciting survey results that we received and our roadmap for prioritization, which will be given by David today. Then we've got two guest speakers for you, which we are very delighted to have. Kathleen Shearer from CORE, as well as Alan Hanbury, who will then be giving us presentations there today as well as our guest speakers. We're then going to be opening up the conversation for discussions later in all these presentations or in our meeting. But I would like to give a few house rules before we continue with this meeting. And the first one is that please take note that we are recording this session. We currently have 31 people in this meeting, so we will record the session and we will be making it available to you, Board of Supporters members, after this meeting. Also, another thing is please feel free during any time during this presentation to pose your questions in the chat. I'll be collecting all those questions, and then later in the presentation during our discussion, we will then be going through all of those questions. So please feel free to just pop them in the chat and we'll collect them because there's going to be multiple of things to go through during the session. For those of you that are here for the first time, we would like to mention our mission as CORE, and that it's to index all open research worldwide and deliver unrestricted access for all. We are here to support and advance the open access or open research movement overall. We'd like to also mention that we're a non-for-profit scholarly infrastructure dedicated to the open access mission. We are adopters of the POSI principles, and that's what we'd like to give you for that space. Now, what we'd like to discuss here is we'd like to mention that how we work is just as important to us as what we do. Now, working hands on with you, our repositories community, as part of our core governance is very important. Developing the tools for you, the repositories communities. Many of those tools, which you will see, are embedded in the core dashboard as well. Another thing that is very important to us is helping you repositories become more interoperable, benefiting the entire repository ecosystem. Another important point for us is that we're aiming to represent metadata from repositories accurately and with provenance information, regardless of the format in which repositories expose them. Now, with this fifth point, which you will hear a lot more from Kathleen shortly, is that engaging in activities that give back and benefit the repositories communities through collaborations with others is also a very important point for us. Without further ado, as you can see that the role of the Board of Supporters is part of our overall community governance. Now, there are two main points, and the first one is helping us to identify requirements and prioritize the development of our roadmap. And in order for us to do this, this is very much linked to the survey that you will receive the results on, which we have conducted, and together with you, you will see all those results later on. The second point is that we represent the interest of the global open repositories and journals network. So gathering feedback from our community, we are absolutely here to listen to your pains, your needs, and how we can support you. Moving on to the next slide, we are excited to share that we are actually celebrating 15 years of CORE built together with our community. Now, as you can see, there are 6 main overarching pillars, and this amazing diagram has been shared in our newsletter as well. So if you'd like a refresher and you'd just like to go through actually what have we done in the past 15 years from our humble beginnings, you're more than welcome to refer back to our newsletter so that you can get a full roundup of this. But just to touch on it, CORE's journey over the last 15 years has been from the first national repository service to now an absolute global infrastructure, and we're extremely proud of that. We have grown into one of the largest open scholarly infrastructures, but not just because of our hard work, but because of the community's support. It is because of you that we have reached this amazing milestone. Our community engagement and co-development have always been central to our approach. So throughout this 15 years, it is, thank you for those hands. It is absolutely important to us to work with you through this. Today, we celebrate both the technology that we've built and you, the community that has enabled it. So I think you actually deserve a round of applause and not so much with the work that we have done. So, from our humble beginnings to a global presence, what's next for us? We aim to co design with our community to ensure the sustainability that you need, the impact, and continued innovation for the next 15 years. Well done, core team. Looking ahead, co designing, like we said, for the next 15 years, CORE is proud to be one of the early signatories of the Principles of Open Scholarly Infrastructure, POSI, like we mentioned earlier, a commitment to sustainability, transparency, and community governance. POSI, for us, underlines our promise to build infrastructure with you, the scholarly community, ensuring that CORE remains reliable, open, and community-led for the long term. So the next 15 years depend on our collaborative design, our shared priorities, and strong partnerships. So I leave you with this. Our formula is simple. With our community, with co-design, that's how we ensure core sustainability. Having said that, with that mouthful of an introduction, I'd like to hand over to Peter so that he can take over and give you the overview of our selected recent core activities. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mo, and thank you everyone who has been supporting CORE over the last 15 years. What I will do now over the next 20 minutes is I will provide a short update on some of the recent and current activities we are conducting at CORE. And before handing over to David to tell us about the results of the Board of Supporters survey. Many of the activities I will be talking about are mentioned in the CORE newsletter, which should have been sent to you. And if not, then please shout and or say in the chat, and we will provide it to you. I will give you a digest of some of the key points from the newsletter. There were a few areas which you indicated in the previous last April Board of Supporters survey as important to you. And among those were the following 6, which I'm presenting on the slide. There was a mention of the fact that you have been, as repositories, challenged and struggling with bad AI bots coming to your repositories and dealing with the challenges and resources that this creates. There has been a point about you needing some support, basically, or the fact that you see as a priority for CORE to provide support for open access compliance, especially in the UK and especially in the context of REP 2029. There have also been comprehensiveness of the data in CORE has also been actually quite high on your agenda. And we got also recommendations from you that it would be very good to integrate some core functionalities closer to repository platforms. For instance, to have certain functionalities not available and not requiring you to go to the core repository dashboard, but to have some of them integrated directly, for instance, in DSpace. And we will tell you, what I want to do now is to tell you a little bit about what we are doing in order to deliver on those points. Also, FAIR was mentioned, and I will give you an update on a few features, basically, which are worth mentioning as something that has been just updated in CORE. And I will be helped by a few people who have been working very hard, basically, on core over the last few months, and who will support me. So first of all, I would like to go to the point of these AI bots. That leads me to the point that the Confederation of Open Access Repositories, also pronounced CORE, has launched a new task force on dealing with bad bots. And I'm really proud to be able to say that we are part of this, and that through the possibility of me participating on this task force, I'm able to channel your points basically to the task force and to sort of develop things to support you ultimately. What we are planning in this task force, which is led by the Confederation of Open Access Repositories, is to provide some guidance and recommendations for repositories on how they can best deal with this problem. We have been talking a lot within that group about the fact that there are certain things that we consider good ways of dealing with the problem, but there are also certain areas which we would prefer that repositories sort of refrain from, and therefore we think that providing this sort of guidance would be really important for the community, so that we can also have like a wider accepted approach on how best to deal with the problems, basically. The second point, which I wanted to mention, is that we got in touch as connecting repositories with UKRI. This is particularly an important update for UK HEIs, and I've been speaking specifically with Andy Hepburn, from UKRI, who is actually a member on our advisory board, and he recommended me also to speak to a number of other people within UKRI. We're talking about several specific areas. One area which we are discussing is how can CORE best support institutions in REF 2029 in terms of, for instance, providing or updating the existing open access compliance dashboard ahead of time, so that you as institutions can best understand how you're doing in compliance in terms of OA compliance, and how can you perhaps do better in open access compliance. We are also talking about how the metadata, effectively the information about open access compliance, is and should be gathered, basically. So there are certain approaches, and in REF 2021, for us, it was a very big challenge because we had very little time to be able to prepare for it. So what we did was that we had to effectively scrape information about deposit times from repository systems. We now understand that the world has potentially moved on a little bit, and that there are better things that we can do. For instance, I will mention that at the University of Cambridge, they are providing a particular schema through which deposit dates could be exposed to aggregators, and we are really interested in understanding that, and for instance, understanding how and if something like this could be followed by other institutions. But also, we don't want to just tell repositories and repository platforms what they need to adopt. We also want to make sure that our approach can cover all sorts of different possibilities. So, of course, if we cannot find information in the metadata, CORE is prepared to be able to gather the information in other ways. And so what we are doing now is we are actually launching like a small working group for institutions. It's completely voluntary. If you would like to advise us and tell us what is important to you, what kind of support you would appreciate from CORE, that would be really brilliant. One extra thing I want to mention, I'm meeting actually with the people from UKRI on Friday, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about this. And in addition to speaking just with UKRI, we've also been speaking with some repository platform providers. Specifically, I've been speaking a bit with Atmire, who have actually developed a REF plugin for DSpace in the previous REF. And we're sort of discussing about whether certain solutions which exist in the repositories could be integrated, because CORE has the advantage that we can see data from across repositories, and therefore this is particularly attractive for the likes of UKRI. the individual repository views have the disadvantage that they cannot do that. On the other hand, they have some other advantages, like that they can see the internals of the repository. So we're discussing possibilities of how we can combine the strengths of both. And with that, I'd like to give the floor to Fredrik very quickly to give us a little bit of an update on how we are at CORE dealing with making sure that our data are as comprehensive as possible. What I want to say before, because many of you probably don't know Fredrik, but maybe you do know him to some extent, is that Fredrik has been working with CORE now for over a year, and he came to CORE originally from the Bielefeld Academic Search Engine base. So he is very experienced, and he's been helping us with making sure that we are as comprehensive as possible. Fredrik, over to you for 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I want to share some information about my daily fundamental activities. The first one is I try to detect and ingest more core data providers. And the goal is to ensure for CORE the comprehensiveness of the global repository network at its scientific resources. I am monitoring registries, Open Door, Core RID, and others. I am monitoring communities on a national and international scale. I am monitoring system and platform communities. And the latest point is I have some searching strategies for finding new repositories. On the left side, you can see the heat map of the CORE distribution of data providers on a global scale. The next point, please, the next slide. The next point of my activities is just monitoring and maintaining the core data providers, because there are a lot of changes and I have to take a look at them because I want to hold the metadata quality and the search environment quality. And this is related to a number of more than 13,000 data providers in CORE. And I daily check the interface connectivity, the metadata quality, and very important, I look at the error situation and try to correct them and repair them. I have to detect version updates, for example, which means some changes, and naturally sometimes systems are migrated and this needs some correct activities in the attributes of the data providers. This is the second main activity I'm doing daily in practice. So this is probably my part of this information, Peter.
Thank you so much for the update, Fredrik. I really wanted to bring Fredrik to you at this Board of Supporters meeting, just so that you understand that this is a systematic work which we really do on an absolutely daily basis. It's really something that we deeply care about, and we consider it hugely important for CORE to be an as comprehensive as possible resource. With that, I would like to give you also a short update about what CORE is doing at the moment in terms of integrating our functionalities with other repository platforms. And we've been exploring some collaborations here through with DSpace in particular. We've been working here and exploring the possibilities with the ForScience. And I will get an update here, or we will get an update here from Victoria, who is CORE's UI and UX designer, and she is also our deputy product lead, basically. So she really understands the product, and she is trying to move and go beyond what we are delivering now to give you the best possible user experience. Victoria.
Yeah, hello everybody. Yes, thank you, Peter. So in July, we started collaboration with ForScience, that is a provider of DSpace and DSpace quiz solutions for repositories. I hope that a lot of us know about it. So this collaboration has been started because we got a positive feedback from repository community about CORE integration with other platforms. So as you can see, 82% of respondents in our survey indicated this area as very important or moderately important. Currently, collaboration in the design stage. So we're working together on how the integration will operate and how everything will look like, so which area will be affected, which dashboard your modules will be affected. And the main areas that we have currently under discussion is metadata enrichment, it's duplicated content detection, it's document classification, and open access compliance. So how it will work? For example, if a paper is missing DOI, in the then the DSpace repository manager will be able to see suggestion, enrichment suggestion from core and add it to metadata like immediately. Other enrichment suggestions include EPG labels, rights rotation statements, ORCID, and others. Another example is open access compliance. So as a result of open access check will be available both for each individual paper and as an overall open access compliance report for the repository. Beyond DSpace, we plan to support other platforms as well, such as the Core Notify protocol. So we would like to help repositories to become like more smarter, more connected, and more impactful. Currently we have no feature, no feature has been released yet, but we continue working on it, and we will keep community informed as soon as we will have something. I hope that in the soon we will share some outcomes with you. Yeah, so this is my update, and now I'll hand over to you, Petr.
Yeah, thank you very much, Victoria. So really, this is motivated by us wanting to streamline the support that we provide for repositories. It's easier for us to work with repository platforms here in this particular case. We have decided to work with DSpace because we had the opportunity. As Victoria mentioned, we would be very happy to work with other repository platforms too. We consider DSpace as a pilot, and if everything works really well for this pilot, then we would like to extend that support for other repositories. Just to make expectations clear, we are at the moment in the design stage. So we're designing actually how the metadata enrichment, duplicate detection, document classification, and so on could potentially be featured in the repository system. We will then select priorities basically because not all of this will be probably manageable to implement instantly. So we will select those priorities and then we will implement them basically. So we wanted to keep you up to date. If you have some suggestions for us, then do let us know, and we can potentially also talk about them in the chat. In the discussion towards the end. So you can mention them in the chat and we can talk about them later. Also, some of you have mentioned that you are really interested in how can Core help with supporting the sort of FAIR principles. And we've been also asking ourselves the question of what does it mean for a repository to be fair? You might know that we have actually built last year a module for the US Repositories Network, USRN, which basically provides like a check. Basically, we automatically check the system, the repository, basically for certain technical capabilities, and we generate an automatic report based on that, which could then be handed over to the repository manager and could be used as a suggestion for what can potentially be improved in order to improve and take discoverability of content in the repository further. So we, in the newsletter, we have mentioned that we are developing this module, and we are in the process where we are sort of seeking pilot instances, basically. So we've already got 2 institutions who are committed to potentially testing, who indicated willingness to test that module. So we are very thankful to them, and we're, in this way giving you an update about the fact that this is at the moment a pilot that is going to be going forward, basically. Very quickly, I want to mention that there are 3 improvements which have appeared in the core repository dashboard. There's now a new module for ORCID enrichment. The idea is that we can come up, we can get you ORCID IDs for papers or metadata records that might be missing ORCID IDs. We have a new request reindexing button. This is a button that, for instance, if your repository manager fixes certain issues that due to which, for instance, Core was unable to index all of your content, then you can hit that button and then we will attempt to do a new reindexing. You can use that button instead of sending us an email. So the idea is, again, to streamline cooperation and make everything more seamless. And finally, we have introduced a new feature in the dashboard called the feedback button. So if there's something that worries you, that you don't understand, or that you feel something is not working, then you can use that feedback button and our team will get in touch with you. A really important thing that we've been doing over the last 6 months, and I believe that this has been a really significant development, is that we have very significantly updated the Core API documentation. So those of you who might be using the Core API documentation should have seen a really very, very significant update. In addition to that, we are a little bit at the crossroads at the moment because we feel that we want to do more than we are doing at the moment. And in particular, you really, as David will be showing in the survey, you showed us that metadata accuracy is incredibly important to you. It's scored very, very high in the survey. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we support all of the key protocols through which metadata can be exposed, basically. And we are basically going to deliver on something which is called a new core data model, basically. And so the new core data model is something that is probably going to take us a year to really implement. But the idea is that we will have multiple layers. We will have like an initial database layer or a raw database layer through which we will be in a greedy way effectively extracting and representing all metadata which come from repositories, potentially in different formats, like in Dublin Core, as well as in REOX, as well as in DCMI, as well as in OpenAIRE guidelines, basically. And then from that layer, we will be harmonizing and normalizing and generating kind of harmonized metadata, which then can also be used in the platform. We feel that it is very important for us to be able to represent and provide both of these views, basically. So we wanted to, again, update you about the fact that this is something that we have recently started and we will be continuing for quite some time. And we hope to get this finished in 2026. And with that, I'd like to see if I have Matteo, but I'm not 100% sure that he is here.
Yeah, I'm here.
You are here. Fantastic, Matteo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to hand
everybody.
to him because, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. So yes, the part that also located, I'm going to talk you through in a few minutes is about the changes in the infrastructure. So the infrastructure of Core has been changing during the years every time, and really many times we just changing one server or another, so there wasn't really much to report about the big changes. But this time, this is a big change. This is a big migration that we come to do because the current infrastructure that we have is probably like, it needs, like, for growing faster and for being able to grow and use the new technology better, we need to move in a different way than we were doing. So we decided that we're moving fully on the cloud. We're having a new cloud infrastructure. So that's what we've been working for the last year, and probably it's going to take us a few months more to get to the right place. What you can see here in this slide is the principles that we set for us to decide what we're going to do. So we explore various configurations of what is our new infrastructure, and this is the one that mostly matches what we want to do. So what we want to do is that we want to have a system that is able to grow big or small depending on our resource needs. That is really good. And also we want a system that is resistant. And, you know, with these things, as Peter mentioned about AI bots and things like that, we need to have a system that is able to flexibly allow or disallow this kind of attacks, other attacks or reckless accesses to our data. So we need to be able to control and be more flexible about these things. And also we want to be more comprehensive. So we want to have more resources if we can to get more data, process more data, and not last but not least, the other thing that is really interesting is that by moving in the cloud, we enable ourselves to get closer to the tools that are been going on now for a few years. That is like LLMs, large language models, all the machine learning tools. Doing it on an infrastructure that is fully on premises is a bit more complex than doing it directly on the cloud, where these things are just, a few clicks away. So that's the plan of what we want to do. So just to give you an idea of what the scale of what we're doing. Thank you, Peter. That's, you read my mind. This is the current infrastructure and the way we are splitting our infrastructure. So we have about 25 servers at the moment. And these servers are all sitting inside the Open University servers rooms, and they are split in different ways. So what you can see here is a diagram that we created to kind of explain what we are doing. So we have various areas into what core does, and every area that has its own job and what it's doing, so that for the migration, we will try to kind of look at them as modules so that it will be easier for the migration to not look at it as we need to replicate the full of code directly. So we're trying to look at it in different subsections. And so you can imagine that the front end is all the website stuff, database is going to be all our data layer. There is a side that does web services that is a bit more heavy loaded data processing endpoints that we're using for our API. Then there is the big one, that is the harvesting. That's the one that processes all the data and collects all the OAI-PMH, but not only OAI-PMH data from everywhere to get it into the database and to process it and make it better and make it uniform. There's a lot of work, as Peter mentioned earlier, about the data model, where we are looking also in improving the way we see the data and the way we expose our data to other places. And then, of course, we have a big file system where we contain all our full text that we can, and also a place to make faster searches, because databases are usually not well made for doing searches. So we need also extra system to be more focused on doing searches, and most likely also looking more into something that is AI enabled, so that we could do more searches that are more like oriented to the current technologies and more future enabled in a way. So that's
Thank you so much, Matteo. That's great. Thank you so much. So that was Matteo Cancellieri, who is the lead developer of Core, and he's working on this migration project together with two other people, Andrew and Besso, in our team. And this is a really big thing which will increase resilience, reliability, and scalability of Core. It's also related to the fact that Core has, in terms of data and in terms of usage, Core has grown multiple times over the last 10 years. Basically, we have a lot more data, and we need to really take it very seriously. And finally, the point which I wanted to mention about the core data model, the core data model updates are really necessary also for Core to be able to expose data in the form of being able to contribute to sort of a global scholarly research graph, basically. And so we're really taking this very seriously as something that is important to us, and we're hearing it a lot from the users of our API, and we're guided by that. So I will need to speed up a little bit. I want to mention one thing. About 80% or just over 80% of respondents to our recent survey indicated they were quite interested in the SOFARE project. And the SOFARE project is really trying to find a solution to effectively registering information about research software and linking that information of linking research software assets, basically, with manuscripts. We are developing all sorts of technology, for instance, technology that can automatically identify software mentions within manuscripts. And then basically there's like a module through which sits currently in the Core repository dashboard, through which it would be possible to sort of take scope of this of these software mentions which have been sort of discovered, and send notifications about these mentions to repositories. And then what would the repositories be able to do with them? And of course, the sending would happen via the Core Notify protocol. So it would be using a standardized protocol for sending these notifications directly to you. And then the repositories, what they could do is we would have a module for those repositories where basically the repositories would send emails to the authors of that research software to validate that that really is software that they truly created, thus sort of making it possible for research software which was not previously identified, which was not registered, to be registered, for them to be cited, and for sort of reproducibility of those studies to be facilitated. So that's SOFARE. We have received some, I think, indications from some of you that you would be interested in a pilot. So thank you very much in this, and we will be getting in touch with you. One update, which I also wanted to give you, is that there has been, we have been providing access to our data to Erasmus University, Rotterdam. They've had a project for training a large language model for social scientists, for social sciences and humanities, basically. And we feel that this was really very closely aligned with our mission to provide this and to sort of support scientists in sort of social sciences and humanities in dealing with, in effectively streamlining the way that research operates. AI really, as you have probably heard from many different places, brings a lot of promise in facilitating and maybe speeding up research processes. Of course, there are many dangers, so the technology is not uncontroversial, but we feel that by working with other researchers, other research organizations as part of their research projects, this is a good way to do. And so we wanted to inform you that this is what we've been supporting. And with that, I'd like to just give a very short word to Catherine, who will remind you of the core data providers guidelines. Catherine, are you there?
Yes, yep. Thank you so much, Peter. Hi, everyone. So on the 25th of September, CORE was invited by UK CORE to present a webinar, which is titled From Principles to Practice, Making Repository Content Discoverable with the Core Data Providers Guide. The focus of the session was one of the key challenges for repository managers, which is ensuring that their content is not only indexed, but also truly visible, truly accessible, and truly interoperable across the global scholarly ecosystem. To address this, we introduced the Core Data Providers Guide, which is a structured, three-layered framework covering repository configuration, metadata configuration, and full text configuration. And for everybody who missed it, who would like to revisit the session and share with your colleagues, there is a short blog post and the full recording, which are available online on our website. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So that was Catherine, who is our community and relationships manager. And with that, I'm very pleased to hand over to David, who is going to give you what you've been waiting for, and that is the results of the survey which we have conducted. So, David, over to you.
Thanks very much. Excuse me. Thanks very much, Peter. Let me just see if everyone can hear me okay, and I will just jump in.
We can hear you.
Greetings, everyone. This is the thing we do very often. In fact, as a pre-run to all the border supporters meetings, and working out where to put the limited resources we have is an ongoing challenge, and it's feedback from the community, from the repository managers, via surveys like this one that actually guide the direction in terms of where we can best utilize the resources. So genuinely thank you to everyone who took the time to complete it. Peter discussed earlier how we took the feedback from the last Board of Supporters survey and how that's been the development driver for the last 6 months. So with that in mind, looking at what we asked you and what you told us this time, I mean, we asked if discoverability per se was important to you, and almost everybody, like 93% of people, rated repository discoverability as very or extremely important. And that kind of informed us that you as repositories aren't just thinking about open access in compliance terms, but about whether your outputs can actually be found and reused. And that's a really, really critical and important thing. And hopefully we're contributing with things like the recent webinar that Catherine just mentioned, and with the Data Providers Guide. We hope that this could give practical help with correct configuration for the repository in terms of discoverability, in terms of making sure your endpoints are correctly indexed, and also, as Peter briefly mentioned, helping with adopting more rich metadata profiles such as REOX 3. In addition to that, we also provide a number of metadata validators and monitoring tools via the dashboard, which is almost like Google Webmaster Tools for your repository. So in terms of questions we asked you, we looked at the quality aspects of core. Now, just to clarify, the numbers here aren't percentages. We used a 5-point Likert scale from not important to extremely important, and then we transferred those to ordinal to numbers, and then summed the totals and then ranked them according to it. And unsurprisingly, metadata came out as the strongest concern regarding quality, and you'll actually see that as a common theme in the next few slides. Now, ease of use is a really interesting one for us. You heard something from Victoria earlier, and it's something that we've been working on really hard. And since we've been able to grow the team in the last year, this is something we're able to dedicate more resources to. And we've been working on improvements to the dashboard and services such as Core Search and the Recommender. And we have a great UI team working very hard on not just making things prettier, but actually making them more practical and useful. It's interesting that freshness of indexing, by freshness we mean how often we come back and revisit the repository, how recently it's been indexed. That and response speed were rated slightly lower, because for us, maintaining freshness is something we're constantly working on as a top priority to make sure the content is indexed. The content that's indexed in Core is as up to date as possible, and we do dedicate resources to this. Response speed is also something we're keenly aware of. Matteo gave you an insight into how we're working to improve the core infrastructure, which will then help ensure that we can deliver a consistent service. Interestingly, though, because these are the sums of the scores, you can see there's actually negligible difference between them, and everyone considers them all to be important, which is actually actionable feedback. And it simplifies it when you do tell us things like this, and it does help to further justify investment in Core for the long term. In terms of the development priorities, this is sort of the crux slide in terms of what you told us we should be focused on. And again, understandably, open access compliance and discoverability top the list, indicating that for you, you're focused on meeting funder requirements and ensuring, again, the discoverability and visibility of your outputs. Priorities such as the enrichments like DOI enrichments, ORCID integration, metadata validation, tell us clearly that those are the things that are important to you rather than entirely new functionality. And it's clear that comprehensiveness and discoverability still rank highly across the board, and they do in these surveys. One area that has increased in importance is dealing with AI bots. Again, as Petter mentioned, how this is handled directly affects your repository and how effectively Core can interact with it. And done correctly, this will allow you to precisely control machine access to your repository. And Petter mentioned the work Core is doing with the Confederation of Open Access Repositories Task Force for bad bots. And there's a lot of work being done in this area. And in this area, we can help not only ensure that Core can index your repository correctly, but we can offer guidance to protect your repository from problematic crawling, shall we say, by proprietary AI bots. Further down the list, just looking, we've got things like research mapping and UN SDG identifications, so that while they're of interest, they're seen as secondary to us maintaining the reliability and the stability of the core service. One thing on this list, as a researcher, I must say, that's interesting to me, and Petter covered this in some detail, is that in the survey, the improvements in the API were viewed as somewhat less important. And as I say, as a researcher, I think maybe because the API is not directly relevant to most of you as repository managers, but it's more relevant to researchers at your institution. We asked a question about this in the survey, and it seems that some people weren't aware that the API is available. So all researchers at your institutes have full access to the core API, which has actually powered some really nice research and use cases. You heard about the Erasmus one earlier, and we've got another one that'll be discussed and covered later on in the presentation. If you want any details about the API service or anything like that, do just, again, get in touch with us. In terms of integration, this is a really interesting one. And one of the things that we're aware of is that core can sit somewhat outside of the daily routine of the repository. And we know that many of you work in small teams and that technical support from your institutions can be not, not problematic, but somewhat slow, shall we say. So we see closer integration between core and the repository platforms as a huge win in terms of delivering enhanced services directly through the platforms themselves. And Victoria spoke earlier about some of the work in this area with DSpace. Many of you will also be aware of the work of Agustina Martinez and the team at Cambridge, and the work they've been doing with the integration of the RIOX-3 metadata protocol, which is closely linked to core's developments in this area. And when we talk about integration, open access compliance reporting again comes out on top. Closely behind is notifications of repository configuration issues, which basically points to a desire for practical, actionable information such as early warnings when endpoints break, etc. Metadata validation, duplicate detection, also scoring highly, and that shows continuing concern about data quality. And again, lower interest in features such as the recommender kind of suggests that repositories are prioritizing dependable infrastructure over the end user discovery tools. We did have one note on that, however. On the Chrome discovery tool, there's the core Chrome discovery tool that's the plugin. We were saying this was absolutely fantastic for their users, but unfortunately, it didn't work at the moment. We're actually aware of this, and it's due to a change in the Chrome security policies, and it's hopefully not a huge undertaking that will be live again and it will be functional very, very soon, because we love the discovery plugin as well. So we actually asked a two-part question here in terms of the UKRI block grant and that being used to fund core membership, and whether people were aware that this was a possibility, or whether people who use it, or whether people weren't aware at all. And the great news is the significant majority of people are aware that the UKRI block grant can indeed be used to fund core membership, and actually about a fifth of you, I think it was 20%, 21% have already done so, which is fantastic news. Again, thank you. We did receive comments in the survey, however, that told us that not all institutions do have access to the block grant, and we are aware of that. But again, if you have any questions about the block grant or the membership, please do just get in touch with the team here. And this is my last slide, and I think I'm doing all right for time. And this is an interesting one. As many, if not all of you will be aware, JISC are sunsetting the IRIS service. And while there is ostensibly a replacement being offered in the form of OpenAir Provide, the information around that service and its availability is a little fluid at the moment. So just as this was an ongoing question, we asked in the survey, is this something that core should consider doing? And a clear majority, nearly 3/4 of respondents said, yes, it is something that core should explore. And this kind of reflects how embedded usage data has become in institutional reporting, and it shows that institutions were actually using the service. The small number of people who weren't sure, there was the feeling saying, yes, but the support is conditional, that it doesn't divert effort from core's main role. And we get that. I mean, IRIS was not a free service to run, and it will take resources to provide a complementary replacement. However, the overall message is that repositories still see value in these aggregated and standardized statistics, and CORE could be a place that these statistics can be hosted. So we will continue to explore this. That is, thank you again to everybody for all of your feedback. I think that is my last slide, and I'm going to hand back to Petter at this point so he can introduce the first of our guest speakers.
Thank you so much. And I absolutely have a pleasure to introduce our first guest speaker, who will be Professor Alan Hanbury. Alan is the head of the Data Science and Research Unit and faculty representative responsible for financial affairs and internationalization at the Faculty of Informatics at the Technical University of Vienna in Austria. He's also a faculty member of the Complexity Science Hub. And Alan is going to be reporting on a project which makes me very excited, and which we started by exchanging effectively a PhD student over earlier in this year, and he's developing something which using core data, which I think is not only something that his institution needs, but I think many institutions around the world will probably need in the future. So Alan, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So thank you very much for the invitation. I'm happy to present. So I'll present a brief overview of the project. So can you go to the next slide?
Sorry, Alan, just want to say, you can take control of the slide if you want to try it. But if it doesn't work for you, then on the left.
Okay, it works.
Yes.
It works. Wonderful. I didn't know that. Okay, thanks very much. So I can even control my slides. Yeah, so as Peter mentioned,
sorry, Alan, I don't think you took the control of the slide. Basically, I think you would need to go to the top bar on the left side, and then there's request control or something like that. If you don't see it, I will control the slides for you. Yes,
top bar on the left.
You have now done it. Now you have it.
Now I have it. Okay, it's working.
Move your slide. No, we don't see any changes at the moment, but you have.
I think you might need to sync to the presenter. So.
Oh, okay. We have lost the slides completely. I should have.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me Let me load the slides again. This was not planned. I do apologize for this. Okay.
Yeah, maybe it's easier if I just say next.
Yes. Okay. 1 second.
In the old-fashioned way.
So I'm in the process of uploading the slides again. I'm not sure what happened. Someone who has a faster connection than me, can you please upload the slides? Can you try? Sorry, no, wait, don't do anything. It's already coming. Okay, let me move the presentation then. Nearly there. Okay. Okay, just there. Okay. All right, Alan, you're ready to go. Apologies.
Okay. Great. So yeah, as Peter mentioned, I basically sent a colleague of mine, Moritz Staudinger, with funding from the Open University to the Open University for 3 months this year. And he was working on a large language model interface to CORE. So it was a very successful visit. So we got a prototype out of it, which I will show you. And we also got a demo paper accepted at the CIKM conference. And there's a link to the preprint. So next. So this is the interface that allows you to query. And essentially, I'll show you later the sort of questions that can be asked. But this is a simple example. If you see the prompt at the left, it says, what did Theoveen contribute to the field of patent retrieval over the last 10 years? And it's then possible to select from a number of models. And if we go to the next slide, you get the output. So essentially, it's a retrieval augmented generation model. So it goes to CORE and also uses OpenAlex, retrieves relevant papers, ranks the papers by a measure of importance that was implemented, and then summarizes, in this case, the top 5, but the top 5 to 10 papers. So you get the references used, and because it's retrieval augmented generation, the references are real references. They're not generated by the large language model. And there is a summary of that answers the questions essentially written by the large language model at the top with references down to the bottom. So that's the simplest use case that we can serve with this, asking for one institution and a specific topic over a number of years. If you go to the next slide, what you also get out, and this is not generated by a large language model, it's real statistics based on the publications, but just some summary statistics showing, for example, amongst other things, the authors of the papers in which years, and at the bottom, which institutes the papers were written together with. So you can also get sort of traditional statistics out of it. Next. This is the architecture that's used. So you can see off to the left are the core and OpenAlex access. Currently, there are 3 large language models included, so GPT, Gemini, and Claude. And the front end allows a question to be put in. And that is if you want to ask, for example, at the level of institutes, at the level of universities, but it's also possible to ask questions at the level of papers. So then it's possible to upload a PDF file of a paper and then ask a question about that paper. And one of the unique things about this are the pipelines that you see in the middle. So in order to give some guidance to what's expected from the large language model, based on the question that is asked, one of the pre-existing pipelines is selected, and then the steps in that pipeline are run through so that the output that comes is of a well-controlled form. So you see pipelines, for example, for multi-university comparison. So if you put more than one university into the query, or the example I showed, just one university to give an overview. So if you go to the next slide. These are the query types that are currently supported. So the top one is the example I showed, just one university and a topic, and it gives you the output. There are examples shown on the right. You can also do a comparison of 2 universities, or identify, let's say, the 3 top institutions for a certain activity, or give an overview of a domain if you just put in a topic. Or I mentioned the possibility to upload a PDF and then ask questions about specific aspects of that paper. So those essentially, each use case over there is a pipeline, a processing pipeline that's implemented in the system. So if you go to the next slide, this is my last slide. My plan for today was to give you a link so that you could try out the demo yourself. But unfortunately, we discovered a few days ago that since the beginning of the month, OpenAlex has changed the access modalities via their API. So currently, we're still solving some problems, and the system isn't working absolutely well. So we decided not to give a link today. But if you look in our paper, you can actually get a link, and it will work hopefully in a few days' time when my colleague has sorted it out. What has happened is when we showed this demonstration to the management of the university, and they have given us some funding to continue with this project. So we now have a university internal project with some people working on this, where we are creating a knowledge graph based on university internal information. So projects, people, and publications from the various university repositories. And then the knowledge graph will be used as an additional input to this system to be able to answer even more complex queries. And of course, we're also talking to the administrative staff as to what sort of queries they would be interested in answering. So we can expand from the table that I showed you to further queries that are specifically interesting for getting an overview of what's happening at our university. So the goal of this, we want an internal tool to support strategic decisions. So, for example, to identify emerging research areas that might require some support, but also to make this tool available for people externally who, for example, might be looking for a specific researcher to work on a joint research project with. So then there would be a sort of expertise search based on our knowledge graph with the publications and the projects of the people to then make suggestions to somebody from outside looking for specific expertise. So that's all I have to tell you about this. I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much, Alan. I just find it absolutely fascinating, this opportunity which currently exists. I just want to mention that when I spoke about something like this at our university, at the Open University, I've got also like relatively good feedback from, or very good feedback from the people who are in communications department, who are sort of saying like, they very often need to communicate, I don't know, with the media about certain things that the university has done in certain areas. And of course, they don't necessarily know, and they would need to ask a lot of people. And this allows them to enter basically this space and be able to say something about what the university has been doing in a particular space over a certain defined period of time, and how significant it is in comparison to other universities. Are there any questions? We have probably time for one question for Alan at this point. If not, then maybe you can also put your if you can also put the question in the chat, and we will pick this up just after Kathleen. So let me progress with Kathleen, and then we can do both Kathleen and Alan answer session just after that, and that gives you hopefully a little bit more time to think about the questions. Thank you so much, Alan. Kathleen, thank you. It's absolute pleasure to welcome you. For those of you, I think that Kathleen will be known to the vast majority of you, but Kathleen is the Executive Director of the Confederation of Open Access Repositories. I mentioned the Confederation of Open Access Repositories quite a number of times, and especially in the context of the Core Notify project. Core is an international association of repositories with membership of over 120 institutions worldwide from 36 countries in 5 continents, and Core is developing a model for scholarly communications based on a global network of open access repositories, and actively promotes the role of libraries in the future of scholarly communication. So absolutely, it's a big pleasure for me to welcome Kathleen. Kathleen, over to you.
Thank you. And I have to apologize because I think I was the cause for the slides disappearing last time, because I actually took control of them, and maybe that's why. I think I have control of the slides now.
Perfect. And we can hear.
Yeah. Okay, great. And thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. I have a very, very short presentation today, just some things, to think about for you guys in terms of the future of repositories and where they might be going. Okay, this is the cursor, so I can do this. Yeah. My presentation today is just like about giving you sort of our initial feedback of some strategic consultations we did over the summer. And we're in the process of developing a new strategy for 2026, 2028. And so we did 2 layers of consultation. One was consulting with a group of experts about, broader trends in the environment that they thought would be affecting scholarly communications. And then the second consultation was a survey of our members, looking at, where they thought Core could have the biggest, Core as in my Core, could have the biggest impact. And so I'm going to give you a few of the early results from that consultation, which I'm in the process of analyzing now. And so there were sort of 5 major things that came on our radar from this consultation, 5 major broader trends. One is the rise of artificial intelligence. Well, we've been talking about that today, and it's very prominent and prevalent in many of our discussions, and it's definitely on the radar at my organization. Shifting geopolitical dynamics. There's a lot, it's a really rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape right now, and we expect that that's going to affect investments in scholarly communications and other things, and levels of collaboration and so on. Declining public trust in scholarship. We've seen, especially in certain countries and regions, big declines in just the average person's confidence in scientific claims. And we also think this is something that's going to be impacting all of us in the higher education sector, research sector in the coming years. Growing support for open infrastructures actually is definitely there. There's a recognition after many years of putting our efforts into trying to flip the commercial system to an open access, open science system, that maybe this isn't working so well for us. And so we see, especially with the Diamond community, but repositories have essentially always been open infrastructure, and that there is more political momentum around this. And then also at the same time, we're seeing many governments that are cutting funding for research and education. So these are the major trends that we identified through our consultations. And I just wanted to bring up like some of the things we're thinking about and the impact of those broader trends on maybe the repository community and, you know, the services like CORE that serve our community. So so far, I mean, I really see that these trends are moving us in a direction towards more support for open infrastructures in the coming years. Especially with the discussions now that many countries are having around digital sovereignty and nationalistic tendencies kind of poking their head. I expect that this will mean countries will be thinking about how to maintain their content in their own platforms, governed by themselves. And what that means for my organization and also for CORE, the Apple Corps, is we really need to think about ensuring interoperability and that standards are adopted across all countries so that we can access and discover and reuse content seamlessly. The looming crisis of trust in research. I think there's kind of two factors to that. One is there's a rise in fake papers being submitted, not only just to publishers, but also now to the preprint repositories. And then also this political messaging that, you know, you can't get away from, that, you know, that many scientific claims are bogus and so on. So I think this really has implications for us in the scholarly communications world. How do we counteract that? Institutional repositories, in a way, have a competitive advantage because it's much harder for somebody to submit a fake paper, for example, to an institutional repository because, you know, usually it has to be somebody who's authorized, who's an author or a community member from that institution that can deposit. So in a way, institutions are, you know, well placed to manage at least that side of things. Well, we're already seeing a rise of LLM discovery interfaces, which I think, you know, will have a big impact on how people consume information. It already is, and will probably definitely leak over to scientific information as well. It's in my opinion, it's extremely important that we are players in this system. And I think what you're doing, Peter, at CORE is really, really important because as a community, I think we want to try to define the terms and conditions that are important to us around participating in large language models and other artificial intelligence services. And that's something that, you know, as you mentioned, Peter, we're already looking at the impact of aggressive bots, but I think we will probably go farther in this and work with, you know, our partners, including CORE, around, you know, what does our community feel comfortable with, and where are we willing to put our efforts rather than just being potentially, you know, kind of exploited. And, you know, one of the things we feel is very important in our community writ large is that, you know, you can trace, for example, the scientific claims made in one place back to the original research papers and connecting that to the data and so on. So this may be lost in a largely LLM discovery ecosystem. So I think now's the time where we really have to make a stand on that. And again, like, I think probably working with CORE, because you're very active in that area, will be really important. And then something else that's on our radar is just that if there's a mediation layer in that discovery process, which there likely will be for many, at least especially public users, then repositories become less visible. People lose track of the important role that they play. So this will probably mean really stepping up our game in terms of advocating and promoting the role of repositories in the ecosystem. So, I mean, all that to say, you know, I think repositories are well positioned for the future, and also the services, the, shall we say, community-based services that we have, such as CORE, OpenAIRE, La Referencia. These are very, very important because they help us to define, you know, what services should look like in our ecosystem. So with that, I think I'll leave it, and happy to answer any questions people might have.
Thank you so much, Kathleen, for your insights. That's really incredible. I was wondering, do we have any people who have questions for Kathleen or Alan at this point? I'm not seeing. You can feel free to raise your hand if you can do it. I hope that people are able to do it, because that would be really a difficult thing if people are not allowed to do it. Okay, I can see it from Pablo. Pablo, please.
I have a question for each. I posted my question for Alan on the chat, but I fear it may not have gone through. It should be sitting.
Okay, no, I can see.
I can see it. Yeah.
It is. I'll start with the question for Kathleen, if that's okay, and because the other one is already written down. So thanks very much for the talk, Kathleen, for the update. My question would be: does CORE, us in COAR, have a position on rights retention, and whether that might provide a way to kind of enhance the value of repositories for the scholarly communications community? Thanks.
Thanks, Pablo, and it's great to see you. It's been a while. We don't have really an official position on rights retention. Obviously, we strongly support it because it makes it much easier for repositories to be able to collect and provide access to research articles that are published in the commercial sector. So I think we're strong supporters of it. We haven't been very active in that area because it's sort of, those discussions happen really within a certain jurisdiction often. Like in Canada, they'll talk, you know, because the laws are different across the legal regimes, shall we say, are different. So to date, we haven't been super active, but actually we've been discussing it at the executive board, how we could be more active in promoting that. So I think definitely, you know, we've always been very supportive of it, but haven't been very proactive. So I think we're going to try to see where we could play a more active role in that area.
Thank you so much, and glad to hear that is the case. And then I have this question, Alan, for you. I'm part of the board of this kind of Eurocris Association of so-called CRIS systems, Forschungsinformationssysteme in Germany. We had a big conference last year in May at TU Wien. I don't know, you probably weren't there, but Sabine Neff now has changed her name, but she's the lead for this area at TU Wien, and I'm wondering whether she may have had the chance to talk to you around this.
Oh yeah, we're in a project. This project is with them. So the project that I mentioned at the end. So because you mentioned that we do have essentially an expert finding system, but the problem with this expert finding system is that it relies on the researchers to enter their data. And researchers tend not to do that, or they just enter the minimum required. And the idea behind this project that we're working together with Sabine Neff on is to automate this collection of expertise essentially, so that we don't rely on researchers listening to calls every so often saying, please fill out your information online.
Right. And you're getting the projects you mentioned as well, right? So you could potentially widen the scope of questions. You could ask the LLM, etc. So yeah, thank you again for the talk and very interesting development. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I assume that there might be some other questions, but I need to move a little bit forward just because of the time. So thank you. I'd like to thank very much to Kathleen and Alan for coming here and giving us this briefing. Thank you really very, very much. And I want to just recap a few points basically from what we said earlier, and because these are to some extent sort of opportunities for an action. So CORE is effectively creating at the moment 2 working groups, one for the FAIR certification modules, or you can call them also consultation groups, another one for the REF compliance. We have for the FAIR certification, we have 2 institutions already indicated as those who would like to participate for REF compliance. If you're interested, do let us know and we will include you. For the SOFAIR module, we have again received some institutions' interest through the survey, and we will be in touch with those institutions when the time comes for us to be able to do this. And thank you very much for for many of you being so open to the possibility of doing this. This is a big thing. As Catherine mentioned earlier, there is a recording of the Core Data Providers Guide. In case you couldn't make it to the UK Core meeting, or you are not from the UK, so you effectively didn't receive it, this is now available. It's also, the recording is available as part of the Data Providers Guide, so you can watch it. And if you have any questions with regards to the Data Providers Guide, we'll be always very happy to answer them. What we tried to do here today was really to update you on recent activities. We would like to really thank you for all your input. And what I would like to open is for a few minutes for us to discuss if you have any questions for the core team. And Mo, and I'm handing over to Mo, who is going to chair the short discussion.
Thanks, Peter. I think we are at almost the last bit of it, and I think the part where we hand over actually to our esteemed guests, and we'd like to ask you guys a couple of questions. I think the first one that we have over to you is that, are there any opportunities we are currently not acting on that are a priority for you as the community and that you would particularly like us to act on? I think I'm just going to throw that question. Feel free to raise your hand, and I think one of us will be able to spot you so that we can give you an opportunity. I'll repeat that question again in case I went a little bit too fast. I asked if there are any opportunities that we're currently not acting on that are a priority for you as the community that you would actually like for us to work on. Anyone?
Well, maybe that suggests that we're acting on all of the opportunities that already exist, and that would be, of course, lovely to hear if that was the case. But maybe it's a bit too fast for some of our colleagues. But in case you don't have anything immediately, then also, we you can feel free to drop us a line at any point when it comes to when it comes to your possibility, basically. So.
Absolutely. Let's get to a more lighter question then, perhaps, so that I can throw it to the community. To ask if you have any suggestions for us to take core forward. Are we going in the right direction? And what do you think we can actually do better? Go for it, David.
Sorry, just to jump in there, we've actually got
Sure.
a really good question from John Murtaugh. Hi, John, in the chat asking about the core discovery extension, and I actually covered this in part of my presentation to say, yeah, the core discovery. We had a couple of comments in the survey. Actually, people commenting the discovery. And if you're not aware of this, it's actually a plugin for the Chrome browser, which when the user comes across a paywalled version of the paper, if an open access version of that paper is available via the repository network, via you guys, via core, then we can point the user to that and a nice little green padlock unlocks. Unfortunately, we've had reports that it's not working. The reason it's not working is because of an update in the security policies of the Chrome web store, and it's actually the owner. And I was going to make a joke about this. Is PETA going to smile? We basically have to prove that PETA is over 18 because they've updated their policies in the Chrome store, and we're aware of this and we're working on it. And yes, it will be available in the Chrome store again shortly. I hope that answers the question, John.
Thank you for letting us know.
Excellent. I guess then we'll move to the next question, which would probably be very beneficial for us going forward in terms of maybe the upcoming BOS that we might have. I'd like to find out from the team, or from the community rather, are we engaging in a way that you expect or need us to? I hope I'm going to get some responses from this one. It's beneficial for my KPIs as well. Anything? Okay, David, go for it.
I'd like to come in here because I understand it's often people are not comfortable talking in public, and if you're not, that's absolutely fine. One of the things from the last BOS in April that was mentioned is that people wanted to hear examples of use cases of where core was being used, and also webinars and training sessions. Now, Catherine mentioned the UK core webinar that we did, and that was specifically on the data providers guide and making sure the setup of the repository is best configured. Webinars was one of the things that you asked us to do more of. So in order to drive that, please do let us know, either by dropping us an email or literally right now, put it in the chat. What extra things, what would you like to see webinars on? What would be most helpful to you folks as a community for us to do? PETA.
And just to add, the other point was to create use cases, and this is again, this is another thing you asked us to do, and what we really tried to do it. So we have now some documented use cases on the website from several universities, and this is why I also presented today 2 use cases, one from the Erasmus University Rotterdam on how we are helping, and I also brought Alan to tell us basically about how they are using at the UWIN the core API in order to build some support for the university internally. Also, if you have any questions which still relate to Kathleen and Alan, do feel free to ask.
Peter, I think you can put your hand down. Okay, you just did. I'm still not seeing any questions in the chat at the moment. I'm going to move to, and I think you've sort of covered it right now, Peter, with the TU-Wien conversation. I think I will just skip to the last one. If there aren't any other questions, are there any other further questions for our speakers? Maybe last takers, let's just see that before we close off. Any other questions? Okay, it seems like there aren't any. So as you can see, these are all our supporting, our sustaining members as well, that we have there for our BOS members at the moment. And I think our 15-year slogan marks that really well, to say together building open access and unlocking global knowledge. We're grateful to all of you as our BOS members, and most importantly, grateful for your time and for joining us and for sticking it out through. And if there is anything, please feel free to reach out. We have also added very important links in the chat, so feel free to access any of those links. Those links are also available in our newsletter in case you don't receive them in the chat and this meeting is closed. But thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, core team, for the amazing presentations. And I think till the next Board of Supporters, I'd like to say thank you very much. And that's it, I think.
Thank you very much for engaging, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Do take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks everybody.